Welcome to HistoricHole. My name is David. And if this is your first time listening to the show, well, it's a little nebulous these days. It's not quite clear exactly when episodes are coming out. I'm just going with the flow. And so if you're looking for a show that's more weekly and, more regular, well, unfortunately, HistoricHole is not the show. Casturbation is my other podcast. Check that out if you would like a weekly episode experience, although sometimes we do miss weeks there, but try to make that rare. But anyway, this week we have an interview with a creator named Big Nick. Goes by Big Nick J on Twitter. He has a show, a podcast called Gag on This. It's great. You should go check it out. Maybe don't turn this off, but after you listen to this, go check it out. And for this episode, there is video on YouTube. And so here it is, my interview with Big Nick. So, Big Nick, thank you for joining me, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, basically, I've checked out some of Gag on This. It's kind of like, reminds me of like panel show, kind of those comedy panel shows where you kind of have a bunch of different personalities and bring up topics and you kind of, have some clashes or, just humorous moments. I don't know. Is that kind of am I on the right track?
Yeah. The clashes are just me and my co-host not doing a damn thing. But yeah, we just, we interview, local and traveling comedians. One benefit from COVID is that we've gone to Zoom, so we've been able to get people like Gianmarco Ceresi from New York. We got an Atlanta comedian coming on next week, so that's really helped out.
Oh, awesome! And so
I just got to say, Tropic Thunder fan, you're already my favorite person, buddy.
Hell yeah. Yeah, dude. This is if you can see in the background. This is just my creative oasis, I guess. But yeah, I mean, nice. Got my drum set here. I got a skeleton back there. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, just movie posters, shit I like. Yeah, man. And for like HistoricHole, I just started kind of shifting into some different stuff because traditionally the show started out a history show, but I wanted to kind of reach out to other creators and just interview them, just talk to them, see what's what, and see where they started, where they're going, where they want. Yeah. Like, where you see yourself going. And yeah, man, it's just cause like, there's a lot of interesting people out there and I love independent media and anymore. I feel like that's where you really find, I don't know, like really, I don't know, that's that organic, kind of genuine stuff that versus like, anymore is pushed out in the like mainstream. It feels fake and phony.
Well, not only that, you get people that are experimenting more. Like on my Twitter feed, I definitely take shots at the radio business because they're sort of afraid to experiment and afraid to do new things. And that's what I like about podcasting is we can push the limits. I mean, there's been sometimes we've had a show where we've said some things that when we stop recording, we're like, ooh, we went there.
Yeah. And being able to go places like, yeah, like you're saying, like that radio is kind of traditionally afraid to touch. I always, I grew up, like Howard Stern, listen to him. Like Don and Mike were big in my area, like here in DC. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they were kind of a comedy group. But just I always enjoyed that talk radio, just that comedy, like guys bullshitting. And then, you see like Howard Stern's movie Private Parts, like, and seeing his come up. And like, he started out as just a straight radio guy and then just kind of moved into the shock jock thing. And it's interesting to me is because like, now it feels like he's kind of taken like kind of a 180 on all that. It feels like he's like kind of against like sort of that really shocking like kind of approach to comedy now. It's weird. It's like,
well, yeah, he's gone. I mean, there's still some fun things like if you still listen to him, the fake Alex Jones, that is hilarious whenever he does those bits. But yeah, he's definitely tamed down. And I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when we had him piped in, and you could listen at 3 a.m. when he was live, or you could listen at 6 a.m. when we had somebody go through with a censor. And
Uh,
the 3 a.m. was great, but then when you listen to the 6 a.m. one, you realize like he gets censored a lot and he pushed the limits, but that's why he was so good.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, there's something to that, right? Like there's something to like pushing the boundaries. And I think like what comedy's supposed to do, or like, at least edgy comedy, like people always talk about how like, how offensive edgy comedy is, but like the point of it is to dance on the line. It's to find the line of decency and play with that. And not, there's an art to it. That's why it's an art form, right? Like there's a reason why like some guys like in the name of comedy just go way beyond the line, and it's just like I can't follow you there, and I can't defend that really, because it's like you got to kind of live with that. A good comedian knows how to play with it and cross it, pull back, and like it's a dance they do, and that's why the best comedians, I feel like, play on that line, and do that well. Like
Well,
look, Carlin,
I was just about to say,
CK, yeah.
Carlin was the one that was like a comedian's job is to find that line, step over it just a little bit, and then come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I feel like most of the great ones they do that. They kind of stick to that. And that's what, if you have that's what the sense of humor, what that means, it's like if you have a sense of humor, it's like then you kind of understand that where the line is, right? And understand how to play with that and why it's funny when people do dance around that line. But and then people without a sense of humor obviously go way beyond it, or just like can't decipher it or like understand what it is, and I think that's what was happening now. Is like you have all these people exposed to comedy that just simply just don't like really get it, and it's unfortunate because like that's kind of, you got to get it like to really appreciate it. And so if people, I understand why people get upset, because like they just don't have the ability to, but
Well, and the thing that bugs me now is, are you familiar with Hannah Gatsby?
yeah.
Yeah. The fact that she came out and said comedy doesn't need to be funny, and then people were like, "Oh, praise the Lord, somebody finally said it." It's like, no. Comedy is supposed to, that's the essence of comedy. Like Hannah Gatsby, I'm sorry if anyone listening gets offended by this, but her comedy special was straight rubbish. It was just a monologue of her talking at us.
Yeah. Right. It's
But
like
I also feel the same way with Dave Chappelle. Like I think Dave Chappelle 90s was funny. Now it's just a monologue.
yeah, he's like it's weird. Like I appreciate what he's doing. It's definitely not as funny though. Like that, if we're gonna just talk straight funny, like it's not as funny as like, yeah, like Killing Him Softly, and I can't remember what it was called, For What It's Worth, maybe. It's a Live at the Fillmore one. That's what everyone always likes, the first one, but like I like the second one when like Chappelle's Show was starting to get big. He did another one that I think was for Showtime. And man, like that, some of the jokes now, that's the one with the Ja Rule joke.
Oh yeah.
And like that's like it's brilliant. It's just fucking brilliant. And but like like you're saying now, he just is kind of going to this more performance art kind of thing where it's like he's adding like he's trying to be that philosopher comedian thing, and I think he does it pretty well. But like at the same time, and to this with Carlin, like I feel it's kind of the same way. It's like his early stuff really was brilliant, and as he got older, he became more preachy and kind of angry and like grumpy, And I don't get me wrong, I can appreciate it. Like I can appreciate angry, grumpy Carlin. But like it definitely was a lot more cynical than like kind of his earlier stuff, which I guess growing up, like I like the more positive stuff, and like he's talking about the church and talking about the priests and all those bits about like from like a Class Clown and Occupation Fool. Like I love those albums. Like they just, I don't know, like they're so consistent, and obviously the Seven Dirty Words and all that. So like to me, it's like if you're gonna really understand comedy these days and jump into like the scene, it's like you kind of that education helps. It has a foundation, right, to like understand the logical progression of why, it's important. That's why I always tell people you should defend the edge, don't
Mhm.
defend people that are like going well beyond it, but like defend the edge because it matters, we need to be able to go there. It's for all sorts of reasons. Like sometimes you got to criticize people in power, and like that's the most important thing, really. And sometimes you got to go to the edge for that. And
When it's
unfortunately, people don't understand it and get offended.
when it's like what Patrice O'Neill said when oh crap, who was it? Imus. When Imus said the nappy headed hoe thing,
Oh yeah,
they brought Patrice O'Neill on and they, were like, are you offended by it? And he's like, no, he tried a joke and it failed. And I remember what he said. It was so like poignant. He was like, look, when you're making a joke, you're doing it in the hopes that it's funny. It either lands or it doesn't. There is no offense to a joke. And that's why I really love Patrice O'Neill.
oh
But
yeah,
I mean, you have to go to the edge and sometimes it doesn't work, but they're all doing it from a good space. Like they're not doing it purposely to piss people off. They're doing it because they think it's funny. And if it doesn't land, it doesn't land.
yeah. Yeah, like that's the whole term. Like, everyone's talking about punching up and punching down, and it's just like, I did appreciate the line what like Chappelle said in his latest one was like, it's like you punch his lines, like punchline. It's like you're punching at people. It's like in order to punch up or down, it's like I have to perceive you as like my superior or inferior to me, and it's just like a comedian. I feel like most comedians, I feel like hate themselves the most of anybody. So it's like, like the idea that they hate, like they have this hatred that they're like channeling through their comedy, like, it's kind of ridiculous because it's like, I feel like a lot of comedy comes from a self-deprecating place, and that I think in and of itself is like, there's something awareness, there's something human about it. And so when people get mad at comedians for like you're saying, like, and what O'Neill's saying, yeah, Patrice said there was like, you got to be able to go, to places, it might not work, but like you have to be able to try it. We have to encourage, and we don't want to discourage people from trying, like I think this is his whole point, right? It's like you want to be able to go those places.
Yeah.
But anyway, but like, yeah, you're talking about, let's talk a little bit more about your journey here. So where did you start in podcasting? Did you, were you involved in radio, like start in radio and then move into podcasting?
No. So I took a comedy class with one of my co-hosts, Rob, and this other guy, Jerron. We took a comedy class, and I strictly took the comedy class because I wanted to get into radio, and I figured that would be sort of a way for me to develop a personality, because radio is you just talking into a microphone, but you make it appear like you're really talking to a person. So I took that, and then I really wasn't getting anywhere. So I said, you know what, let's start a podcast. This will give me a way to perfect it and, learn about audio. Because Jerron, who's no longer with us, he's alive. He's just not with the podcast. He works in radio. So he was showing me how to edit, the audio, showing me how to edit and adjust on the gains and stuff like that, what all this stuff means. So we started doing that, and then it's sort of progressed to where people shockingly like actually want to come on. Like they hit us up and they're like, when am I going to get on? Which I'd never anticipated would ever happen.
That's pretty awesome, dude. Yeah, like, that's kind of the goal. Like, it's like just, build up the community. And like, I think that's where it really starts. It's just like it's anything like organic, that has like some value, I think it gains traction. Like as long as it's, if people see it. And that's one of the hardest things I think for a lot of creators is like getting out in front of people, right? And visibility. And like Twitter's been helpful for that. Like, just talking to people, just interacting with people. And I think, just through people, I think acquaintances, like maybe like Pixie or somebody, like I like found your tweets and started following you. I honestly don't even remember when it happened. I just kind of been doing it, and just like, but like I noticed what you post. You always post like very consistently, and it's always like kind of like with the same sort of tone, like always comedic, and like I like that a lot, man. Like it's like it's entertaining. Like you're able to like keep me entertained throughout the day. Because honestly, I don't post enough. Like I really should be more interactive on there. And like if I really want to like, you know, push the podcast a bunch. And two, I've also thought I talked to Pixie about this, was like branding wise, like I and maybe you can have some thoughts on this. Like I create accounts for like the podcasts I'm doing, but I see a lot of people, you know, that create it's like an account for them that they've been pushed their creative stuff under. So I'm like
Mhm.
wondering, like maybe I need to just change my account to like my personal account basically, or for me as a creator, and then just push the podcast under that. I'm not sure yet where I'm
I mean,
going, but
first of all, shout out to Pixie. Pixie is great. Her hosting her spaces. I mean, she's doing a lot for the podcast community. One thing I would suggest, if anybody wants to, you know, do this, is definitely get a personal account, but also then create an account for your podcast. Because what you want to do, because I have a one for the Gag on This, I'm very rarely on it, but you want it so that way you can tag the podcast in your posts. And if somebody wants to, they can click on the thing, it'll send them to the podcast thing, and then they'll start following that. So that's definitely something. Plus, you also want to like have your own, just so you can say, like, if you ever have a thought that you're like, oh, this is pretty funny, and it's not podcast related, you want to have that outlet to where you can be like, oh, you know, poop tweet or whatever
yeah.
the hell you want to do.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what I just kind of been just using like the historical account as basically just, you know, my own personal thing. I was just like, nothing I ever post really is related to the podcast. Like, it's just kind of like my personal thing. And I do have like links to the shit on there. You know, people can find the podcast, like, I guess if they're interested enough. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's, I've been, yeah, definitely thinking about doing that just to maybe like make it more clear who's behind the, you know, it's so rather it's not just like, yo, a logo. And two, I see people talk mad shit about just like accounts, you know, corporate accounts that are always trying to like fucking throw out jokes and like be funny and interact with people. And people are just like, you know, go away. Like, and
Yeah.
so I feel like maybe it might hurt me too. It's like people might be more hesitant to interact if they just see like a logo or it's like an account for a thing versus a person. So I don't know.
Well, plus there's one thing I've found with not everyone, but there are a few podcasts where their account is just a podcast. And what they'll do is somebody, I don't know who it is, one of the hosts, like there's one that I'll follow because they're kind of funny and they're local. I'm not going to, you know, say their name or anything, but they'll reply to some of my posts with like just straight garbage, like sometimes being very vitriolic, sometimes being a little like crossing the line kind of thing. And that would turn me off to listening to their podcast. I would be like, okay, this is essentially what their podcast brand is. So I'm not going to deal with it whatsoever. Yeah. Versus I have my tweets and they're somewhat aligned with Gag on This, but at the same time, it's clear that this is my tweet. Like, this is not associated with the podcast unless I tag the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be the approach to take. Although it's like, you know, one of those things too. It's like, you know, putting yourself out there. But like, you know, it's like I look at you, look at Pixie. You guys do it. You put yourselves out there. You know, just like, and it takes you know, there's some guts that it takes with that. Like, honestly, it's like some people like, you know, that are steeped in the social media sometimes, like, you're so used to it, they don't sometimes forget that, like, no, like putting yourself out there in almost it's like you're almost on all the time, you're performing, you know. And so it's like that is comes with its own stresses and its own anxieties. And I think, you know, you get used to it like anything, but yeah, it's so, you know, trying to get into that mindset of like, yeah, I'm gonna put myself out there, just me, and let you know, all the judgment, all the good and the bad come with that, you know. You just can't be afraid of that. And too, as I've been like on the internet and in the social like media game with Twitter especially, I've started to get like less timid about that, because I'm like, you know, it's like paper tigers almost, a lot of it. It's like, you know, it does seem like, you know, you see like these fucking mobs go after people. I'm like, you know, honestly though, you'd probably be lucky to have a mob come after you, because that's a ton of attention. So.
Oh no, dude, having had a mob come after me, I would highly suggest you not be that person.
Okay. Yeah.
I had do you remember what was it? Like 2 years ago when the movie Cuties came out on Netflix?
Oh yeah, I
Oh
remember.
yeah. Yeah, just you by you saying, "Oh yeah, it caused controversy." And I
Oof.
remember I just posted something innocuous. Something like, "Look, if you don't want to watch Cuties, you don't have to because you have the right to choice in your own life." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Take what did I say? Take control of your lives for once." And I got bombarded. I got 2 death threat DMs, so that was
Jesus.
fun. Um, somebody retweeted me, called me a pedophile, and then blocked me. I mean, it was just insane. So that sort of was my wake up call to like, you know what? I still post somewhat political stuff, not all the time, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm going to stay away from these because I don't want this anymore.
Yeah, and too, like, it's like political stuff seems to attract like the worst kind of people. Like, it's just always like, just, yeah, like the most antisocial, fucking vitriolic kind of weirdos. And it's like, so that's why I try, yeah, me personally, I try to stay away from it though. Like, sometimes, like, I can't help, like, if something's especially absurd or like it's just a good joke opportunity, right? Like, that's but like, what you're saying, like, like with that, I remember people being so like, even like I was posting like not even like stuff in support of the movie. Like, I was just kind of like posting like a like, well, there's obviously an open debate to be had about like where this line of exploiting the kids and entertainment is, and but people are just like, there is no, there's no debate about this. Like, it's just and I'm like, I haven't even watched the fucking thing. I bet half the people mad about it, most of the people mad about it probably didn't watch it. So it's
Yeah,
like,
no.
it's, I'm not going to litigate this movie right now, but like, like the point being, like, people find any excuse to just be a jerk and abuse other people. And like, uh, even when people are, obviously in good faith, trying to just be reasonable about it. And people, like, it's unacceptable to try and have a reasonable take about things, especially stuff that gets people riled up on Twitter, I've noticed. But
Yeah,
yeah,
one
so yeah, stay away from the politics.
well, and I was going to say one thing you can do, anybody out there, is because I still get them every now and then. Somebody, will reply something stupid. I'll usually click on the person, and if they've been around since 2013 and have 2 followers, I'm like, you know what? That's just a troll account. So I'm not even going to bother. It's just somebody somewhere who just hops on every now and then, tweets something, and then goes away. It's usually the ones like if I click on someone like one person regarding the cuties thing, since I had the gag on this podcast and I knew the handle, while I couldn't search it on my Twitter, I could search it on gag on this. So I went to her thing and she had like 103,000 followers. And I was like, oh, God damn, she's a real human being.
Oh God, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and those accounts, yeah, that have that power and visibility, like that's, yeah, like drawing the attention of one of them, like like I would, yeah, it's tough because like there's definitely times you see like the mob people ganging up on somebody when it's like they're clearly being stupid. Like, they're saying something dumb, like the whole Bean Dad thing. Like, everyone jumped on that guy for like he was. Do you remember that? Like the whole
Oh,
he let.
that was they bullied him off of Twitter,
Yeah,
man, for something dumb.
yeah. It was just like, but like, he was being stupid. He probably didn't deserve the level of attention that it got. But at the same time, though, it's just like, you know in a lot of those cases, I'm like, all right, I probably won't find myself in one of those situations. So hopefully, if I ever do get a mob after me, it would be about like something, like I would clearly be like somebody would be kind of coming after me for some reason. It wouldn't be like I said something stupid, like just completely stupid that everyone's just like ganging up on me for. Like, I don't know. But that's almost a good problem to have in a sense. If like not that you're saying stupid shit, the other one, when like, you're getting so much attention or perhaps influence over people in a way that other people don't like, then they start to kind of come after your character. You see that happen all the time, like with people that are like kind of rising, like comedians
Yeah.
or just entertainers in general, anyone like organic, like people start digging into their old tweets and trying to find reasons to cancel them or whatever. Like Shane Gillis, like big example of that. He was on the rise, and everyone starts like digging through his shit because like, oh, this guy could be really funny and people could really like him. And it's like, so they try and cut him off at the knees, before they can get there.
Well, not only that, like the one thing I don't like is they'll pull up a tweet from, 10 years ago. And it's like, I think somebody would have grown as a human being from 10 years ago. Like people change.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like, it's like, and two, a lot of the times it's like comedy and it's like jokes. And even if they're my whole thing is just like jokes are jokes, even if they're tasteless, I will usually defend them as long as they're like in good faith, because sometimes the one example I use is like, have you heard that there's a podcast called Who Are These Podcasts?
One where they rate them?
Yeah, or they just kind of like, they kind of riff on it, and like will usually kind of like, they'll usually pick out kind of like lower quality podcasts like rip on or make fun of. I'm sure they've done like some decent ones too before, but like they did like Ethan Klein's podcast and like ripped that shit apart. They did one though that was called The Daily Shoah, and it was like a bunch of like anti-Semitic dudes. And like, it was like wild, like listening to their comedy bits, because it's just so like, it's just like Jew jokes, all over the place. And there's just like no awareness though of like why what they're doing is like, come on, like guys, like it's this, you're just being hateful jerks, like there's no redeeming quality, to this, because like that's my whole thing. It's like I'll defend the edge when it's actually, an awareness of the art of comedy and what you're doing there. But like if you're just being a jerk, like I can't defend that. Like when, so and the guy, I think one of the guys like was a paramedic. He ended up losing his job because people found his podcast and then tried to argue this whole free speech thing over losing his job. And it's like, in that case, it's like, I'm not going to defend that. Like, you lost your fucking job because you said stupid shit, and really unredeeming stuff. So it's like, I have the other podcast I do that is called Casturbation. And that one is just comedy, just kind of riffing bits the whole time. And sometimes we say something like really, immature stuff. And it's like, I'm hoping that like if anybody ever did find that, the context of what I'm doing would be obvious versus like what those guys were doing. I mean, it's like you can't defend that. Like,
yeah, there's a time and a place, and on our show, there'll be times where we'll make a quick, just sort of a tag. Like we'll be reading something, and I'll say something, and then somebody will come in with just a quick tag. There's that, which pushes the line. But then, like you're saying, to have every podcast pretty much center around why Jews suck, and and you're laughing about it, doesn't mean that that's pushing the edge. That means you are just basically saying Jews suck, and you're trying to add levity to it. It's like there's a complete different. And I always love it when people are like, well, it's free speech. It's like, yeah, there is free speech, but at the same time, your job is free to let you go for the things you say. Like these people that say the N-word on recorded stuff, it's like that's never going to look good. I don't know where you think the context is where you're going to come out looking great because you said it.
Yeah, and it's like people, they try and like kind of like litigate, well, why can't I say, like, it's like, dude, I'm not, me personally, it's just like I'm just not going to engage with it. It's like and my comedic style, I'm not comedically sophisticated enough to handle racial humor. Like I can't go there because I don't know, I'm not careful enough or whatever. It's like I don't feel comfortable enough making the jokes, so I stay away from it. It's just not my style. So I try and find humor in other places. And to me, this is kind of like a challenge, right? Because it's just like, it's almost like easy to go with just kind of like the low hanging fruit, you know, the easy like stereotype or like whatever. And so I try and find the maybe the less obvious joke, you know. Sometimes I think that it probably hurts more than it helps because like, you know, sometimes the obvious joke is just what's needed, right? To just hit somebody right in the face with that. But you know, and so sometimes I might be, yeah, just keep trying to be too obscure.
Well, I mean, there's obscure is great. Like one thing I'm a fan of, and not many people get it, is I'm a huge fan of like the obscure ass references. Like not many people will get them, but the people that do will find it to be hilarious. And that's where I sometimes suffer because I'll make an obscure ass reference and nobody gets it except for two people, but those two people are just laughing their asses off.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's basic. That's a big part of like casturbation. Is like, yeah, it's just we're like tons of like references, yeah, obscure ass shit, and like you know, it's basically why we call it casturbation is because it's like essentially us. It's just really self indulgent, and we're just letting it flow. Like, there's no preparation involved at all. We just kind of riff off of each other and just kind of let it build and see where it goes. Um, and you know, some days obviously it's like, you know, it'll just kind of bleed into us just kind of bullshitting and talking. But like I feel like, you know, most of the time we're trying to like be looking for like the bit or trying to like work on something. I don't know. It's like I don't know what it is yet. You know, it's like one of those things where we just do it and it's fun and you know, hopefully people will find it and enjoy it. But like I've been trying to think of, yeah, like in ways to sort of, yeah, just generate more interest in uh other stuff I'm doing. So like, yeah, that's why I've been talking about like the branding and like, yeah, you know, all this other shit. But anyway, um with the like back to what you do though, like gag on this. Um you get uh comedians obviously. So you get guests and I mean, do you find them mostly through Twitter or is it like just through connections like friends of friends or
No, so I used to do comedy a lot.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to do it every week. I would go to the open mic. But again, my heart wasn't in it, especially because if you go to an open mic, first of all, it starts at 8 and you may or may not get on. And let's say you're fifth on the list. So you may get pushed down to 12th because, you know, somebody comes in that's, you know, higher status than you. So, and they got to work on something. So they get, you know, preferential treatment. So when I was in the comedy scene, I was able to get that. Danny D, that chick, she is still a comedian. She travels all over the nation to do comedy. She's helped us a ton with getting guests. And then some of them I do hit up on Twitter because I follow a lot of local ones. And like shout out to Gabriel Alexander. I hit him up and I was like, hey, who's a comedian you think I should have on? And he sent us like 3 or 4 that were just, you know, amazing.
Nice.
But we also randomly, and I don't get this. I mean, I guess I get it. I guess we put out a good, you know, product, but like we're gonna have Damon Sumner on. His agent hit us up to come on. We had Gianmarco Ceresi, who's been in a couple shows. His agent hit us up. We had Mikey Winfield come on, who, you know, had 2 episodes in The Office. He has a special on Amazon. He hit us up to come on. Yeah, so I'm really shocked at the names that are willing to take time. We had Frank Castillo. He opened for Joe Rogan on his tour.
Oh, hell yeah.
So it's one thing, though, that's funny, and not many people know this. There's comedians that are funny on stage that are shit guests, like just garbage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
like
I mean, different format, yeah.
Well, yeah, and there was one guest. Oh, I'll never forget this one. It was so awkward. It was me, Rob, and Danny, and the guest. And the guest was a female. I asked questions like looking her in the eye. She would then turn to Danny and answer the question without looking at me or Rob. And then like Rob or I would crack a joke and she would just be like, huh, and then just keep talking to Danny, like looking straight at her. It was the most awkward interview. And she's big time in Sacramento too. So that was weird.
Interesting. Yeah. You know, it's like too, you know, maybe people, yeah, just not like their level of comfort in the environment. Maybe it's something to do with it. Like, it's just like, yeah, the format is so different. Like when you're on stage, and you're by yourself versus like, in that setting. I mean, I guess I can see it. Like I've honestly been doing the podcasting so much now that like I've gotten pretty used to it, but I've wanted to go to the open mics around here, just like try it, like stuff. I've been obviously, written jokes and like, have also, through the pandemic, it's like bored, like just started like, well, fuck, I'm gonna write some shit down. And now that, everything's open and back up, I want to go hit some open mics up. But like, yeah, it's, part of it's been like just timing. Like, there's the area, it's just not like a big comedy scene over here. So like, unfortunately, I'm only, we're like 5 hours from New York City. So like, if, we're ever to like get something rolling, like you're not that far from like, a good place to be. But, I guess I hear Philly's not bad either, but,
No, not at all.
so like, but anyway, yeah, it's just one of those things kind of like, creatively, throwing yourself into something new. Yeah, it's like I feel like I'm just like maybe just like hesitating, kind of overthinking it, like just like I'll be really pumped for it, want to get into it, and then look at my jokes and like just be like, these are the worst fucking things in the world, and then like I start reworking them, and then maybe there's something good comes out of that, and I like rework each. I'm like, man, this is way more succinct and like straightforward, and then same thing happens though. Next week, I'm just like, God, fuck these jokes. These are the worst fucking jokes. And so like, it's just stuck in this cycle. And I just need to, I just need to take the dive and just, see what it is. I think I'm overthinking it really.
Well, and that's the reason I took a comedy class is I knew I wouldn't go up unless I had somebody forcing me to go up. And this may be a reason for you to start your Twitter. Because what you can do is I actually got a Twitter specifically because my comedy coach or the comedy teacher told me Twitter is the best because you have to get a joke out in 160 characters. And he was like, if you can write down a joke in 160 characters, that's the kind of stuff you want to produce on stage, something quick and something funny.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like brevity's the soul of wit, as they say. So if like you can keep it, short and sweet, like that's usually the best. That's why, like, you look at like Dangerfield, his jokes were so just like straight to the point. They didn't have a lot of words to him. He was talked a lot, but like man, like the setup was quick. Or even like a better example would be like Mitch Hedberg, just like word economy with that guy, just like he just didn't need that much, and it was always playing too, like on the he would be playing with the words sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Hedberg's he's fantastic. Obviously gone too soon. But
yeah, that guy was a fucking beast.
Yeah, and like I don't know if you ever saw like he did a Comedy Central special, and I think I don't know what like if there was a version that aired that wasn't what I had, because what I had was just like a straight through recording, and it seemed like there was stuff to it that wasn't would have been aired, because like he said something at one point. He was just like, why did they fill this room full of people that don't like my comedy or something like that. And so it was like, because like people just weren't really into it, like they didn't understand what his deal was. And so like yeah, it was, and that's how Comedy Central always does their things. It's like they just fill an auditorium for people's Comedy Central specials. It never seemed like it was like actual fans of them. Though it seemed like most mainstream comedians never really had too much of a problem. But like, yeah, if you got more obscure, then like, yeah, that might become an issue. But anyway, you're just kind of rambling about Hedberg there. But
that's a good ramble though. I mean, one of my favorite jokes of his is just, he was talking about cooking a baked potato. And he was just like, sometimes I throw a potato in there because, who knows?
No, yeah, he's fucking brilliant. So I guess that's a good topic. What would you consider to be like maybe your current like favorite or favorites comedians that are out there?
Big J Okerson, definitely.
Oh yeah,
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna, a lot of people don't like him, but Louis C.K. I think is great.
Yeah. Yeah, of
Um,
course.
yeah, and then there's who is it? Al Madrigal. Not many people know him, but if you look up his Cholo soccer dad, that bit is hilarious.
I'll write his name down because I have not heard of him.
Yeah, he did he was a correspondent for the Daily Show for a bit.
Okay. What about just like all timers, like all time comedians, living or dead?
Let's see. Patrice O'Neill probably is probably my top one by far.
Yeah, he's pretty fantastic. You know, like yeah, he's like so because I love that show back in the day, Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn. Like it's like
Yeah.
so much Patrice content. He was on every episode. He was one of the regulars. I'm pretty sure almost every episode he was there. And then him, Nick DiPaolo. Yeah, man, too. There's some really almost like prophetic stuff in that show about like Patrice, like his death. Like there was DePaulo would make jokes about him like having a fucking heart attack or like dying like really early, like all the time, because I guess it was the nature of maybe just like their friends. He saw like maybe his lifestyle and was making fun of that. Like he would make fun of his diet and shit. So I think it might have been Norm Macdonald talked about this. I think about Farley. He said, I think it was either Norm or Spade said that Farley just lived like he was gonna live forever. Like he just had no regard for his health at all. Like they said he would like be cutting a steak, like he would have be eating a steak and slather the piece in butter and like it put it as like a dude was just did not care. Like he was just all in. It's just yeah, one of those the way they describe it, yeah, it's just like one of those spirits, just like he's like burned hot and fast. And it's just yeah, it's interesting. Like some of those guys that go early, it seems like yeah, I don't know, they tend to be bigger. Like
Yeah.
John Candy, Belushi, Farley. You start listing them off. It's like damn. But man, like all those guys, fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Do you know how Patrice O'Neill found out he had diabetes?
No.
So apparently he and his wife were in a piss play, and he peed on his wife, and his wife said his piss tasted like a birthday cake. That's literally how they found out.
That's wow.
Yeah, because he talked about it on O&A.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a interesting thing going on with them too. I guess they're kind of at odds with each other. I see their Twitters. It seems
Oh
like
yeah,
they
they've
fucking
been
hate
at
each other now.
odds for so long. Well, and personally, I mean, you're familiar with Opie and Anthony, I take it.
Yeah, I was never like super into him, but like I'm aware, yeah, of what they were doing. It was kind of in the vein of like I felt like Howard Stern. It's like a shock jock sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, Opie, I think Anthony and Jim Norton were the funny parts of that show. Opie, I think, didn't give anything to it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's like it's like interesting though because like Opie like will sometimes post some random shit, and it was like there was something I feel like I saw from him recently. He like I think he just posted like this interview of like that they did Opie and Anthony did way back in like 2002 with like Phil Anselmo, and like just like how he was fucking like fucked out of his mind through the entire interview. And just like you hear like Phil the whole time he's on the mic. He's like strung out on fucking heroin. He just like keeps cussing and shit like through the interview. He's just like, oh, I'm not allowed to say that. Sorry. It's just like, oh, dude, it's fucking hilarious. So it's like, it's like, yeah, but like again, like Opie's not really the point of all that, but like, he's not contributing anything there, but like, but it's just like interesting content. And so like I still like follow him and like, I guess for that, but I've always found, like you said, I always found Anthony way funnier. I guess Anthony Cumia, right? That's his
Yeah.
full name. Yeah.
Yeah, and he went off the deep end too.
Yeah, with compound media and all that stuff. I mean, it's pretty wild what they're doing over there.
Yeah, I mean,
um,
hell, the one of the shows is the reason for the Proud Boys, I believe.
oh, it was yeah. I can't recall exactly the circumstances.
Gavin McGinnis, that's the guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. Yep. And oh my god, yeah, and like I don't really watch too much of it. Chrissy Mayer, she posts some interesting shit sometimes. I'm not like, I don't have anything against her. I know she's involved with them. She seems pretty like pretty cool. But like, they obviously seemingly have like a slant over there. Like, they kind of lean heavily to one side, or at least seemingly I don't know if it's like they're trying to appeal to a demographic, or if it's just like, well, no, this is just kind of what we want to do, and I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like you're attracting an audience, and then you kind of in order to keep that audience, you kind of keep feeding the same stuff. I don't know what, sometimes that happens. Like, if you strike gold somewhere, you see that all the time with these people on the internet, like TikTokers and shit. They'll like keep making the same TikTok essentially over and over again because it's what got them views in the first place. It's like they keep doing the same joke over and over again. I'm like, all right, and that's fine. I mean, it's your thing, but like, I don't want to fall into that. Like, I would hate to be that guy. Like, that always makes like the fucking TikTok where it's like, you're like, this is one guy. It's like he's like looking at something that's like oddly sexual or something, or like, but something that's like in nature, or like in like a cement mixer, or like, and he's like, he kind of looks at it and like with this fucking look on his face, like he wants to have sex. I don't know. It's like, I mean, he makes a bunch of those. I'm explaining that horribly, by the way. People might figure out what I'm talking about, but like, yeah, I don't have the vocabulary right now to explain it in detail. It's one of those, again, like a lot of it's always visual, and it's like, but again, the repeat of the same thing, and I'm like, okay, it gets a little old to me. I don't know. I'm not on TikTok at all, but
I was just about to ask you because, I mean, you talk about branding. Apparently, that's the place to go these days.
yeah, that's what I hear. But it's just like all the shit, all the propaganda about it being Chinese spyware scared me off. So I was just like, no, I don't want to. But I mean, it's just like, I'm sure, the U.S. can already see all my shit, and whatever. And China hacks the U.S., so they probably have it too. So, yeah, I mean, guess we've been going for about 45 minutes. How much longer did you want to hang out?
I mean, I'm whenever you call it, I'm cool.
Okay, I mean, we probably go for maybe like 15 more minutes. Is that cool? Let's go
Sounds
for like
good
an
to
hour.
me.
All right, cool, man. Just hydrate real quick.
I was gonna say I need to drink more water. I just drink like soda all day.
Oh yeah. That's usually what I switch to at night. But I actually, I have not been drinking a ton of water today, so need to get it in.
So you said you're out in DC, right?
We're like, I'm in Richmond, but like, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
2 hours south of DC. So obviously, there's all this shit with the fucking statues. My whole bit on that, like, like they had the whole thing with the Confederate statues. You need to take them down, and there's a whole thing down here though. It's like we have a Monument Avenue, and the whole name of there is it's called Monument Avenue because there's fucking monuments on it, right? And they took down all the monuments, so now it's like, what the fuck is the point of this road? Like, why is it called Monument? But anyway, my whole bit though, I have a comedy bit about the taking down the statues, and my thing is like it's, yes, we can take down the statues, but it's like, they're in a way like a creative expression of people from the past. So I feel like we should just add our creative expression to it. So if that means we just create another statue right next to them and put balls in their face, then hey, that's our expression. It's just like fight their expression with your expression. We don't need to tear everything down. Don't be destructive. Be creative. So,
Dude, I gotta say that you should use that Monument Road joke because that was actually fucking pretty goddamn good, dude.
yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, it's fucking true too. That's the fucking sad part about it. Yeah. No, man, it's like I genuinely kind of feel that way. Like being destructive, like I don't know, like it just seems so like it's a misplaced use of energy. Why don't we use our energy to be creative? You know, that's my whole thing. Like that's why I like doing podcasts and creating shit. You know, um, it's like an outlet. You know, it's like people like, and that's why like I feel like when you see all this protests and people like start rioting and shit, it's just like, man, like people need fucking hobbies. You know? Like Christ, put your mind somewhere, man. Like, you know, it's like that. It does so much. Like I don't feel compelled to go like burn shit down if you like you're working on something, you know, or like you have some, you know, that's why it's like, generally I feel like those things, and not to say that there's not people that want genuine change and you're like out there with good faith. There, it does attract people though that I do feel like don't, you know, really have a lot going on, and that they feel like kind of like they're taking something out on the world, and like that's like that, you know, it's coming from a dark place, you know, and so like that's why, you know, that's why I'm kind of going that route. It's because like, you know, creativity versus destruction, I think is just better for your soul in
Yeah,
general, you know.
and when it comes to a podcast, I mean, you can make a podcast about everything. Like there's a podcast where they discuss Rugrats episodes.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
that's insane to me. I'm like, and there's apparently a big audience for that.
Oh yeah. I mean, too, just nostalgia. The audience from nostalgia, like, do never underestimate the audience from nostalgia. Like, my God, that's why, like, you know, the Hollywood just remakes so much shit now. It's just because, it's just like, a lot of the younger generation, it seems like, you just don't care about movies. So it's like they don't, not trying to create new stuff to appeal to them. They're just like, oh, all the people in their like, you know, like 40s, 30s, and like, you know, 20s are like, those are the people that grew up with like we need to appeal to them, you know. So it's like, yeah, that it seems like yeah, the reason why like we just keep getting, you know, remakes of everything now. But yeah, also too, Hollywood's never been particularly good at being original, but
I know, but and what's crazy is when they are, it's always like a indie film. Like there's never been a big produced. Well, I take that back. Dunkirk, that was big produced and all that, and that was actually a really good movie.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the ones that really stick, you know, with people and like are so influential are always like indie movies.
Oh yeah, and usually too, even if it's not like you know, necessarily like an indie movie, like sometimes there are like they strike gold with something and then try and replicate it, you know. That's why you get like stuff that's really good will have a bunch of bad sequels, you know, because like, you know, it's like you look at like fucking Rocky, it's like it has a million fucking sequels because it's just like the first one like just like resonated, you know. It wasn't complicated either. And I don't get this, you know, and a lot of times like you're saying, a lot of them start off as like indie things, like Terminator, like
Yeah.
that was pretty indie, I think, for the time. You know, I'm pretty sure. Like, you know, it's hard to say, but I mean, it was. Yeah, once Cameron obviously got, you know, more clout, then Terminator 2 was a little bigger, but you know, I think too, like it really drives the creativity in a lot of these circumstances. If you point to Dunkirk, it's like Nolan. It's very visionary, very vision. He's a visionary guy. Same with Cameron. It's like these. Some people have a knack for the process, and I think part of being a good director is getting people to buy in, especially your actors, you know, to what you're doing. That's why like Mel Gibson, as crazy as he fucking is, his movies are always like fucking phenomenal to me because like it's like everyone's bought in. Like everyone's like on fucking board in the movie. Like Ed, did you see Hacksaw Ridge?
The Vince Vaughn was in it. It's about a
Yeah.
pacifist, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like the movie's like he's drawing upon like Full Metal Jacket, you know. It's like the influences there, like it's kind of split between training and like the event, and like, you know, he's pulling from all sorts of like Saving Private Ryan. It's like all this influence is in there, so he's pulling from all this great stuff that came before him. But then like the acting is just like top notch. Like everybody fucking brings it, and then the story like itself is just like so positive. Like it's like he's like trying to be like, you know, like no, it's not glorifying war at all. You know, it's like this is fucking horrifying shit. You know, this is why, and this is why the character didn't want to contribute to that horror. You know, and so yeah, like I think you know, being a create these creative guys, getting people to buy in and really care about the product is part of that process. That makes a good director. It's like kind of, and I don't think you can teach that. It's like something that these guys just kind of have.
Yeah, I mean, but then sometimes I think they get too big of a head. Like
Oh yeah,
Avatar, that's a great movie. Okay. But now like Avatar 2 has been
yeah,
what, 20 years in the making, it seems.
almost. Yeah, like it's getting up there. It's like 15 years almost.
Yeah, and he's
Oh
like, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be, and me personally, I didn't think Avatar was all that great.
yeah, yeah. Same here. Like it was Dances with Wolves in space. It was like it really wasn't like that interesting, like of a story, and that's what annoyed me about it. Because like Cameron always came up with these fucking like visionary stories, like like what he did with Terminator, and then like what he did carrying with Aliens, like building off of that story. Like it's like he totally built, like it's like that was the sort of template then for like action movie sequel or whatever, was like you build upon the world in this way and you make it bigger, and like you add more. And so like, and yeah, like the Abyss too, like I'm not really a
Yeah.
big fan of the movie, but like it's at least interesting, like thought wise, or at least conceptually. And so yeah, like he being that creative guy, like I was always had that respect. I was like, well, you know he's gonna come up with something here. I thought it was gonna be, and then it was just like fucking Dances with Wolves in space. I'm like, come on, man, like you need something else. Like you need to do better than this could have been something really special if you would have just elevated the story to something unique, just a little more unique.
Yeah.
Because the whole like, oh, the white man comes in and learns the ways of the natives. Like, oh, dude, how many times have we seen this? Like, it's the same fucking movie every time. We know how this ends. Um, but yeah, so like, yeah, but what you're saying, and like, I think Cameron, yeah, he kind of got like, a lot of these guys, they kind of get to the point where there's too many sycophants and yes men around them, and like, no one's can tell them, hey, man, that's not like really that good of an idea. So that's one thing. Is like, I feel like creative people they should never lose is like those people that keep you humble, around you,
Yeah.
that kind of like can be honest and just be like, no, like, and it's not something you always got to take that people's advice, right? But it's good to have that perspective of like a contrary to what you're, what you might be thinking is good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
One thing that's, I brought up Nolan. I love Nolan to the point where I watched Tenet. Have you seen that?
Um, Actually, I don't think I actually watched the movie. I think I watched because like everyone's like, this movie is so fucking complicated. So what I watched was a bunch of like explainers on it. So like I kind of feel like I do understand what the concept of the movie is, at least. So
Yeah. So I watched it with no explainers at first. I didn't understand it one goddamn bit, but you know what? I enjoyed every minute of it.
yeah.
And that's why I think Nolan's a great director. I have no idea what happened, but I'm like, I'm in. I'm so confused, but you know what? I'm going to keep watching because this is great.
Yeah.
Like Inception. I understand Inception more than I understand Tenet.
Yeah, and the thing about Inception for me was like it's very yeah, it's very similar to that, and like it's just like high concept, but it's like it's very goofy, but like it's a lot of fun. It
Yeah.
is a lot of fun, and you can't take that away from the movie. It's like because I shit on Inception all the time because there's a lot of goofy things to it, but like it's so fun. Like like I watched it a ton because I really do enjoy the movie. But like yeah, it's like I feel like The Dark Knight, like it was one of those things. It's like such a lightning in a bottle kind of experience. Like it's like you can't recreate that. Like like what Heath Ledger did, and like everything just seemed to line up right. The story was like like phenomenal. Like the movie just like fucking flowed. Like every
Yeah.
time I watch it, it just does not feel like 2.5 hours. Like it just
No. And personally, I don't know about you, but for me, I think Nolan saved the franchise.
oh, like just Batman.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, Michael Keaton was the original, but I was never a huge Tim Burton fan when it came to the Batman. Like I love Big Fish and all this other stuff, but I think Nolan is like the quintessential Batman trilogy guy. Like he saved it for me at least.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I wasn't too like still not too hot on the Dark Knight Rises. I mean, how do you end it? And like with Heath Ledger dying, it's just like there's so much went like yeah, kind of sour there, but like the Dark Knight though, like I mean, the fact that we got that,
Yeah.
out of the whole thing was like that's worth it, right there. Like it's just yeah, like that it really captures like the essence I think of what the Batman character is. It's just like his fight with the Joker and like the whole thing of him being a vigilante and him struggling with his identity, like so yeah, it's like you know he's just like what again like lightning in a bottle. Sometimes movies are like the Matrix. I kind of consider another sort of lightning in a bottle movie. It's like you can't replicate those things. Like they're just so like everything was aligned right. Like the actors were in place, the story was tight, and the creative people behind the camera like got it done,
Mm-hmm.
properly. It's just like you just don't all those things don't always align, and when they do though, it is really an incredible thing. But like anymore, it's like, because I think movies, unfortunately, yeah, like the interest is sort of dying in them. Like it's yeah, they're kind of just trying to just recreate these kind of experiences or like that's why like with the new Matrix movie like they're kind of just trying to like drum of any IP they can that be like, well, like this made us money, like
Yeah,
people
exactly.
people came to the theater for that. Like, what about that? So it's like unfortunately, that environment with movies isn't really fostering. I feel like a ton of like original creativity. And as much shit as people give Wes Anderson, like I give Wes Anderson shit because he's definitely like got his thing and he does it. But like at least it's fucking original. Like, at
Yeah.
least he's usually coming up with something that's like an interesting story that's not what predictable, and there's something to be said for being unpredictable. I like that in a creative person. And so that's why I think I like comedians. It's because like you don't know what they're gonna fucking say, like you don't know where they're going. And that's why like a good comedian kind of outsmarts you in a way. Like you're trying to figure out the punchline, but then they'll like hit you with something. You're like, oh, like yeah. I mean, I like being outsmarted with movies or
Yeah.
jokes or whatever.
Like for me, I was telling somebody a while ago, like the reason I like Louis C.K. is if you watch his SNL monologue, like the topic he has for the audience, it's perfect because he pushes the edge and he pushes it pretty far, but then he ends up, bringing the crowd back into his good graces. And that's, I mean, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, like a good example. Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. It was like, yeah, like, you know, I was going, yeah, some pretty edgy places, but it's like that he's really is a master of like jumping over that line. Like he had the whole bit on like the N word, and like that
Yeah.
whole thing, and like it's a fucking brilliant bit. Um, but like I would never fucking I can't do that bit. I'm not gonna do that bit like because Louis C.K. knows how to do the bit. It's
Yeah.
like and like yeah. So anyway, where are we at? Looks like maybe coming up on an hour or so. I guess we'll can wrap it up. And did you want to like talk about anything before any questions for me while we're here?
Mm, yeah. I've been this whole podcast, I've been trying to figure out the poster that's above your symbol or your hi-hat or whatever. What is that? Yes.
That one, that's a Blade Runner.
Oh shit. Okay, I see it now. All right.
Yeah, you might not be able to see the logo, I guess. Yeah, the symbol's in the way.
Yeah, I see Harrison Ford. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Blade Runner, that's one of my all-time favorites. Just I love sci-fi. I mean, it's fucking great, and I mean some of it's really garbage, but that's a fantastic sci-fi. Philip K. Dick, obviously, and is based off that, and just the whole concept. What I love about it is just like it's basically just like yeah, a robot struggling with its mortality. It's just
Yeah.
like it's such a funny concept but it's like done so well. And yeah, like the ambiguity too of like sort of the kind of the ending of the movie. I like I'm a big fan of ambiguity, so maybe You know, and I guess movies these days are becoming less and less ambiguous. You know, with their it's like you got a very clear cut good and bad guys and all that. I, but, you know, yeah. What I really appreciate in a movie is nuance. Like characters are people, you know, that are both good and bad because people are both good and bad. You know, nobody's
Yeah.
like either one way or the other, right? So it's like a good character is somebody that's got some depth. You know, it's like, hey, you're not just a caricature of the good or bad guy. But anyway, just rambling again.
Well, I just got to say it's quite funny because it comes full circle because they did what Blade Runner 2049 or whatever.
Yeah,
Because they were like Blade Runner works, so let's just do another one. Do another one and put a younger hot guy in it. We'll be good.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right, man. Did you want to plug anything? Plug the podcast? Any other things you want to do before we bounce?
Sure. Follow me on Twitter at the Big Nick J. Gag on this podcast. We release episodes on YouTube every Saturday, and then podcast platforms every Monday. So subscribe to our YouTube page. Hear the episode 2 days before it's released. Follow the podcast, I guess, at gag on this _pod on Instagram and Twitter. And then we got a Facebook. Also, I do want to plug, go to fantasy-funeral.com. That is the Gag on This Deadpool. You can stay abreast of all of our points, and we have a fun time doing it. And that's it. Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it, man.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for listening. Give me 5 stars on iTunes if you think we're worth it. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at HistoricHole. My name is David, and I'm out of here.